All right, everybody, welcome to the live stream here today on healing chronic back pain with ancient indigenous methods. And my guest today is Mark Mangus, who is a holistic health coach. He's a shaman, and he's a guide for awakening leaders who want help to recover from chronic back pain. And Mark has trained with Dr. Alberto Velodo, who is a medical anthropologist and the founder of the Four Winds School of Indigenous Medicine. And you may also be surprised to hear that Mark is also a technology expert in the cutting edge of healthcare AI, and he's also been a digital health advisor to early stage and mature organizations. In 2012, Mark had a tragic car accident that landed him in the hospital and led him to a multi-year journey with chronic back pain. And so today I'm inviting Mark to share the One True Calling stage, to share his journey and talk about his journey from almost near death to having now exuberant energy and living absolutely pain-free. Mark, I want to welcome you to the stage. Thanks for being with us here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joe. I'm excited to be here.
Where are you dialed in from today?
I am coming at you from Southern Oregon, a tiny little town called Talent.
Amazing. This is the thing I love about our ability to connect with people anywhere, no matter where we live, is this ability to connect on live streams like this. So, Mark, I wanted to just kind of start off by having you share like your journey. I gave a little bit of an introduction. I don't know if I caught it quite right, but I know your story a bit. And as a disclaimer for anybody who's listening, Mark has been both a client of mine, and I have also been in his program. And this is something that I rarely do myself. I work with people in health and wellness to create online programs. And Mark has he put a program together, through working with me. And I had problems myself with chronic back pain and some weight that I wanted to lose. And so I'm going to chime in a little bit, but I wanted to give that disclaimer. And with that said, Mark, I want to hand things on over to you to talk about your journey.
Sure. Yeah. So it kind of the turning point for me to finally get healthy was my car accident in 2011, where I was rear-ended at a stop sign. I had no idea what was coming, and net result was I herniated or injured 12 discs in my neck and back, and that kind of led me on a 12-year journey of being in pretty much debilitating chronic pain the entire time. Literally, they ask you to rate your pain on the pain scale 1 to 10. My choices were 8, 9, or 10 every day. And the only option given to me by the Western medical system was opioids and pain management clinics. And so it got really bad. And within 2 years of that accident, I was actually suicidal. I thought, if this is going to be my life, then what's the point to be in this much pain, right? So obviously I'm still here. So I checked in with myself and decided to be my own advocate and start investigating what healthy people do, what people do that are not in pain, and really made a study of not only alternative healing techniques, but looked into indigenous societies and how they treat plants and how they eat. And that kind of led me eventually to the path of shamanic practice and shamanic study. But I'll get into more of that later. I kind of wanted to give you the initial part of the story. And I think a lot of people can probably relate to some aspect of being in pain or having a chronic condition, and having the Western medical institutions kind of leave you out in the cold. Basically, they give you interventional medicine, pharmaceuticals usually, and just tell you that this is going to be your life from now on. You just have to take this medication, and there really isn't any way to heal what your condition is. And I'm here
Yeah.
to tell you that that's patently false.
Yeah. And I concur with that. And I really want to dive on, into some of the details of it, because like I said, I have had, on and off issues with back pain and joint pain. I also had uh, problems with my hip joint at one point, and ultimately ended up having to get a hip replacement. And most of the mainstream information about this, including to me a lot of the information that comes from some of the alternative practitioners like chiropractors. I don't mean to put anybody down in this conversation, but just like you are sharing, I share my own journey and experience as well. And so, what are some of the first things that you discovered when you started to, you went to the doctor first, you had the pain medications, that's not doing anything for you. What did you discover initially that started to give you some relief?
Yeah, I started to find a few things that would help. Things like chiropractic, specifically, relatively new treatment option at that point, depression treatment. And that essentially is where they have this traction machine that is driven by a computer, and it pulls your spine apart in micro pulses and lets it heal in a more expanded state. And it's incredibly, it was for me incredibly painful at first, but over time I got a little bit of relief from that and more mobility, so that helped. I also found acupuncture. I found some herbalists that were, prescribing some herbal things to help with the pain. And looking back, what I was experiencing, I didn't really have the words or the concepts back then. Were still interventional in nature, right? Rather than foundational. I wasn't doing things that were fundamentally changing how I lived with pain or how I ate or how I moved. I was still looking for something to intervene and fix me. And so what I teach now and where I'm at now, looking back at that experience and the experience of so many of my clients is common, is they're on that road because that's what we're taught, and that's what is reinforced by our medical system is interventional medicine, not foundational medicine.
Yeah, and so some of the words that I use now, in even the traditional medical community is using now, is this term lifestyle medicine. And so, share how that relates to what you're talking about in terms of getting to the foundational causes of back pain.
Yeah, it's basically the idea of how you live, move, breathe, think, perceive is all related. You hear people talk about holistic wellness or mind, body, spirit medicine. All of those are really just words to describe the same phenomenon, which is if you really want to change your life or heal something that seems unhealable, intractable, like chronic back pain, and you have to be willing to put everything on the table for examination, everything in your life. And once you do that, and you're really rigorously honest with yourself, and you have the courage to face those things that maybe you don't want to face, like your relationships, your perception of yourself, in other words, self love, all of these types of things have a part to play. What you eat, food as medicine. Um, I can't tell you how many, it seems to be like if I had to pick one common denominator in all my clients, it seems to be that how they're eating because they're told and reinforced by the medical system and by, advertising and everything in our world that eating is separate from health somehow, right? As long as you take medication, you can live however you want and eat however you want and somehow, have a good life and have relief. It doesn't work that way, folks. It's all related and it's all intertwined.
Yes, yes, and I find it incredibly frustrating. on the other side of it now, because I have to share with you. I don't know, if you're fully aware of how beneficial your program has been to me, and I want to share some details of it because, like, I have also, like I mentioned, I've had chronic back pain, and I would call it kind of low grade back pain for a long time. I also had a car accident many years ago. And so, like, I put a lot of faith in chiropractors, and like you mentioned, the decompression, pulling the discs apart so that they're not pressing down on the nerves, because that's what's creating the pain, is the pressure on the nerves. But what made the biggest difference for me is the change in diet, and coming to awareness about how so many of the foods that we eat are inflammatory. You want to talk a
Mhm.
little bit about, like, your approach to that and how you relate to that?
Yeah, so we were talking about some things that I kind of found that helped a little, but didn't really solve the problem. One of the stops along the way that I had was the eating part. I found this program called Wild Fit, run by a man named Eric Edmeades, and he based his program on evolutionary biology. In other words, how did we eat 100,000 years ago when we were much more basic, had a much more basic society, basic culture. And I got a lot from that because there was a lot of educational pieces in part of that training that showed you how off base and corrupted our food distribution system has become in the West, where misguided information, false truths are used in advertising routinely, and people take them on as true. I mean, the perfect example of that is got milk. Milk does a body good, right? We're not cows. We're not supposed to drink milk. And the latest cutting edge research in food science is showing how inflammatory and damaging dairy is to humans, right? And one of the things that directly contradicts the, milk does the body good, because the idea is we take in the calcium, right? And it helps our bones. But what dairy actually does is it makes your body more acidic. And being too acidic actually leaches nutrients, including calcium, from your bones. So you can see how we go full circle when we start to advocate for ourselves and do our own research and look into, like what I did, look into societies that are healthy. What do healthy societies do? Societies that have people that live to old age, disease free, active, happy. What do those societies do? Make a study of that, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have to do that ourselves because our institutions don't study that.
Yeah,
They
our
study,
institutions don't study it. Yeah, because there's no money for
there's no money.
those studies in it. And I'll tell you what it brings up to me. What you just mentioned is when I went back to Italy to visit where my family lineage is from, and I'm in this small town, and I'm in a graveyard in this little small town, and the gravestones were like, people were 110, 120 years old. I mean, there were few people that were less than 80 years old, and this is in a really small rural village. And so there was something going on there. We have now the Blue Zone movement. I live here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and our community has initiated the Blue Zone. So, fortunately, this information is not, it's more accessible. And,
Mhm.
with health coaches like yourself, each person doesn't have to, reinvent the wheel, is what I feel.
Yeah, the information is out there, and the food system is changing somewhat. I mean, you have the farm to table movement, you have the blue zones movement, which are actually, the exciting part of that is they're creating new blue zones like Scottsdale, right? They made a study of all the places that kind of naturally grew up that way, came distilled it to the common components, and now they're saying let's create new ones. And I think that's awesome. There's one just north of me too, in a city called Klamath Falls. They're
Mm.
creating a zone there, so that's amazing. And that really reinforces what I was saying about the holistic wellness approach, right? Mind, body, spirit medicine, because it's all of it with the blue zones as well. They look at the societal factors, the family group, how much you move, all of it, in addition to what you eat, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's a whole system. So we talked a little bit about the food. How about the energy and the spirit part? This is one of the things that I've noticed is very unique about your program. And we hear a lot about energy workers, and I don't think it's a well understood topic. So
Mhm.
share a little bit about the indigenous approach, or how you incorporate spirit and energy into the work that you do with clients.
Sure, I'm happy to. I get really excited about that because there's a lot of people out there that are calling themselves energy workers, and a lot of them are very good. But others are kind of fall into this interventional trap, like I was talking about before, where you're coming to them and they're intervening and doing some form of energy work on you to fix something, right? Now, sometimes I will caveat what I'm going to say next, but sometimes that's needed because you need to get kind of the space to do your own work, and the intervention can be useful. And I do interventions too in that context, right? But what I get really excited about is a foundational approach to energy work, which is to teach you how to connect and open up to the divine in yourself and how to become your own healer, how to become your own guru. And all the programmatic things that I've developed, all the techniques that I teach my coaching clients is along those lines, how to help you unlock your own inner healer. And the way I do that is I give you tools so that you can develop your own daily practice, not to do it my way, not to follow a script or, that's kind of what religion's about. That's not my realm. What my realm is about is showing you how to develop your own daily practice and your own lifestyle medicine around spirit, which I just look at it as presence or connecting to something that's greater than yourself. And with no prescription about what that looks like. But given that kind of basic parameter, there's a lot that you can do to reinforce your own ability to be resilient to the chaos that's around you. Boy, do we need that today, right? Our world seems to be full of chaos. But I also look at that all that chaos as a catalyst for transformation. It's all happening for us, not to us. So without all of that input, it would be very difficult for us to have the catalyst to change. Because if everything's cool and you're not in pain and nothing particularly is wrong, you can kind of get very stagnant and kind of in a
Yes.
steady state, homeostasis, right? Most of us are not there. We have something that we would like to change. And so that's kind of where the spirit comes into the mind, body, spirit. And it's just as important, if not the most important component.
Yes. Yeah, it's such an interesting thing because I want to double click on a piece that you said there, which is like just the affirmation that things happen in life, right? Like life does not just, even the best of lives, it does not just, it's not all roses all the time. Things come up, things happen. So you had an auto accident that sent you off on this journey. And then I remember you sharing that you had a bit of a spiritual awakening, or an awakening that maybe opened up the opportunity for you to work with the Four Winds School in Sedona. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. So what the precursor to that was in 2015, I had a sudden onset ulcer that caused me to almost bleed out. I lost 6 pints of blood in about 45 minutes. What was the ulcer caused by? The pain medication I was taking. So that was kind of the last straw for me. I realized that I had to stop listening to all my doctors or they were going to kill me. It was that simple. And so that put me on more of a, had more of a hunger, more of a fire in my belly to really figure this out. And that led me to studying a lot about indigenous ways of being, indigenous living, South American, Andean, which is what the Four Winds Society is based on, the Caro traditions of the Andes, but also North American Indian, Mexican, Mayan, Aztec, that lineage. I was looking into all of it, and I found a lot of commonalities in the basic belief systems about how everything is alive and everything has spirit. And I was at a very low point. I got an email from the Four Winds about this gathering of the shamans in Sedona, and I didn't really have the money. I didn't really have the energy to go, but I decided to do it anyway. And when I got there, I found this really warm, welcoming environment. And I met Stephen Farmer, who's he's an older guy that he's written books about Archangel Michael and angelic energies, kind of his thing. And he ran this workshop based on ancestor work. And the basic idea behind ancestor work is that we repeat patterns of trauma across millennia, across ancestors. And so when you do your work, your shadow work to clear that energy, you're doing the work of your ancestors as well. And so they make themselves available to you to help you. And that's exactly what happened to me. I went into this workshop with an open mind. We went very deep into an altered state of consciousness and meditative state. I met my paternal grandfather, and he appeared to me and told me, "Hey, I have the same issue you do. I want to help you because you're going to help me." And I entered what the Buddhists call a samadhi state, where my identity kind of blew apart. I didn't feel like myself. I felt like I was connected to everything. And when I finally came back into myself and into my body, and I looked around, and everybody else was kind of coming to as well, I walked outside and I put my bare feet on the bare earth. And I realized that for the first time in 12 years, I had no pain. It was gone. It was like somebody turned off a light switch. It went from 10 to 0, and it hasn't returned. So was it a miracle? Was it sudden? Yes, it was. But now that I've had some time to look back and process kind of my path that led me there, I realized all the things that I had done up to that point led me to that point, right? And
Mm.
one of the things was I began to look at pain as an archetype, as a teacher. And I began to kind of embody and embrace the idea that once I got the lesson, once I got the message, the teacher would leave and find another student. And I believe that that's what happened. I
Mm.
believe that I was ready to let it go.
Mm. Man, I can totally relate to that, to your story that you're sharing right now, because I think I may have met you before I had a similar experience, but I was in Mexico and caught the dengue fever.
Yeah. I
And
remember
that put me into bed for about 6 days. And I had wanted to, cleanse my body. And, it's not something that, we just do every day to, to fast and to, create that space. But just like you're kind of describing, like, there was something that created so much frustration, and the dengue fever was created a pain that caused me to have that, that experience of awakening. I think that you're describing that happens through extreme pain. And so, in a certain way, it's not that I wish pain on anybody, but I know that chronic pain it's a thing. It's very common. And like you were saying earlier, like we're taught to believe that, it's just something that's going to always be. Like Western medicine has no answer for it. And it all kind of rings true. What you're saying is that the answer is into the self investigation, into finding what is underneath this thing, and whether that thing is eating or um, having relationships that are disharmonious, or whatever it is. But the pain can be the door opener to it. And I think I've heard you use this term before. What is the term that you say about pain?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I hear you think you heard something like, well, maybe it's something about the pain. Pain is the teacher, or.
Oh, yeah. Pain is just a carrier of information.
Mhm.
That's what I teach, and that's what I practice. Pain is there to get you to pay attention. And
Yeah.
until you pay attention and you get the message, it will persist, and it will often increase. and it will often take other forms, because I believe what spirit is trying to do is to get you to pay attention, get the message so that you can use that to transform.
That's what I think I've heard you say, is to find the message in the pain.
Find the message in the pain.
Yeah.
That's what the pain is there for.
So painkillers are almost like the opposite of really what you want. I mean,
You got
right?
it. Yeah, if you're taking painkillers, well, even if you're not taking painkillers, what do most of us do? What did I do for years when I was in pain? I would find other ways to self-medicate. I would find other ways to not pay attention to the pain, to not get the message.
Like, for instance, give examples.
Well, media, alcohol, drugs, those are the obvious ones, right? Staying busy, throwing yourself into your work, finding the next toxic relationship that you're going to have to recover from. All the things that we do as humans, no judgment here, we all do it, right? But we're finding the next thing to act as a proxy for us actually paying attention to the pain. It's very counterintuitive and countercultural to turn into the pain
Turn
and
into
really
the pain.
experience it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The one that I can relate to too, which is such a subtle one and it's so accepted, is food.
Yeah, that was what I did.
And my relationship to it has been that, I grew up in an Italian family, and we make really good food. It's delicious, and there is a certain, there's a certain joy, right, in eating in general. It's a great thing to do, particularly if you're eating good food. We have a lot of distraction food, right, like the sugars
Mhm.
and the oils and
Yeah,
things like this. But yeah, I can see in my own life how the food has been something to cover feeling certain things.
yeah, and for me, at my worst, when my pain was a 10 most days, and I didn't want to move, I didn't really want to experience life at all, let alone move, right? I used pain as that I used food as that self-medicating behavior, and I was almost 450 pounds.
Mm,
And to date, I've lost almost 130 pounds
mm,
just by focusing on balance, not being on a diet.
hmm.
Diet has the word die in it. um, Diet is not a good thing when it's used in that context of something you have to do to achieve an outcome. What I learned from the Karo wisdom keepers of the Andes is that their whole concept of life is around Ayni, Ayni. That's a Quechua word, and it roughly translates in English to harmony and reciprocity. They believe that Ayni is the natural state of the universe, is to be in Ayni. So whenever as humans we experience something that is not that, it's because the universe is trying to speak to us. Spirit is trying to give us information. And that not Ayni is often pain, right? Or trauma or something that we don't want to be experiencing. So the reason that it's happening is to give us the information we need to change. And so that's really my focus of my own personal practice, but also what I teach is how do we get clear on what is not Ayni in our lives? And it takes courage, it takes determination, it takes a lot. But I believe that's why we're here. Nothing short of that. I believe that's why we're here as humans. That's our work. Our
Mm,
profession, a lot of our relationships, making money, all those things, that's set dressing. That's just to maintain our, physical vessel. But our real work on this planet and why we're here is to figure out how to be an Ayni.
mm, I love that. I love that. And so, as we start to land this conversation, we could go on for quite a while. Um, Share with the audience here, or people who might be listening to the recording of this, what does it look like for people to work with you? How does that often start? Why do people come to you, and what would be the first doorway in?
Sure. So I work with people in a couple of ways. I started out doing one-on-one programs or one-on-one coaching, and I still do that. But my main focus has been on group programs because I'm a huge believer in the healing power of community. It's so much easier to get healthy and to get it supported in our changing behaviors when we're in a cohort of people that are trying to do the same thing. So I started this Facebook community called Awakening Spirit Community, and we'll have a link to that so that you can join that community. That's really kind of the starting point for anybody that's interested in my work and what I do. It's very supportive. It's invitation only. And all of my events, I do live streams, podcasts, workshops, things like that are all kind of coming into that community. And then I also do long-term coaching where I do one-on-one, coaching to help people in a more customized way, whatever is top of mind for you, whether it's chronic back pain or weight management or whatever it is, relationships. I take, kind of this program standard that I've developed and customize it to you. So I work with people on a 6-month basis as well. So there's a lot of ways to engage with what I do, but that should give you a flavor for the various different kinds of modalities that I
I love that. Well, is there anything else that we have not talked about that you want to share that is coming up in your world now?
Just that there's a lot of opportunities right now for us to take on the chaos that's all around us, right? And I believe that it's still a choice what we decide to take on. And it really comes down to, are we going to choose to give all of our energy to these external factors that we have no control over? Or are we going to commit the ultimate act of rebellion, which is to embody peace and love? And it's fine to say that, but how do you do it? Well, that's what I try to do every day in my own practice. And what I've kind of devoted my teachings to is to help others find a way to embody peace and love every day. And what I'm going to do for everybody who's watching this is there's going to be a link to schedule time with me. I have an ultimate health goal session that I do that kind of gets into this customized plan for you. I'm going to give 5 of those away for free or as a gift to get you to really engage with your health and get really honest and really courageous about what's not working in your life. And at the end of that session, I'll give you kind of a documented plan of things that you really need to work on. And then if you end up working with me, then that would kind of form the basis of our work. So the first 5 people that want that can have that as a gift.
Great. Well, I'll make sure that that link is also in the LinkedIn post for this as well. And I'm not sure if you said this already or not, but what's the most common problem, or what is the problem that people like really on the surface would come to you for?
Usually the most common thing is it's something physical. It's either a chronic condition like chronic pain, back pain is super common, or chronic overweight or underweight. Tried everything, nothing works, that kind of thing. I do get people that come with, wanting to do deep emotional work. I call that shadow work, around relationships or around self-love. That's probably number 2. But then I also get people that just want to have a more profound connection with something greater than themselves. And they want a practical way to do that is not disempowering, that is not religion, calling a giving up your power kind of thing, which a lot of us are taught when we're very young. This is a self-empowering way to have kind of your own spiritual practice.
Yeah. The things that you've talked about in terms of like why people come to you, that really rings true. Cause I know, for myself, it was a very outward thing, which is that I all of a sudden had the realization that I was about 30 pounds overweight, which was these things kind of sneak up on us. And, 30 pounds is a pretty common one. Like, I think, I don't know what the percentage, probably like most in America, at least 30 pounds. And man, I got a weight set right here that is about 30 pounds, and it's a lot of weight to pick up.
Yeah, it is.
When you drop 30 pounds, I mean, I know the experience for me was that my energy shot through the roof. My mental clarity just
Yeah,
got just super clear.
yeah,
And then many of the other things that you've talked about during this live stream revealed themselves as well too, which is, the different things you've talked about in terms of, self-love and self-care, different things like this. So, but for me, yeah, it was the weight loss was the most basic thing. And I didn't fully put together that, that the weight gain might have something to do with my back pain.
mhm, yep,
I know that it sounds almost ridiculous to say that now, but at that point in time, I didn't really put it together. I did basically what you've described, which is I went to the chiropractor.
mhm,
And that's usually where people go. If they got a back pain or they got a neck pain, they go to the chiropractor. You get an
yeah,
adjustment, you feel a little better, but it never
yeah.
solved the problem.
That was the one of the most profound understandings that I took on this path is understanding that in the West broadly, we're taught to think that way from the time we can walk almost. That if we have a boo-boo, we need to go have mommy kiss it. That persists through our lives, right? Something's out of balance. We need to go to see somebody to fix it. That's not how they're taught. The Karo are not taught that way. They're taught that, oh, you exist. You are a beautiful expression of light and love. This is what they tell their children. You exist in a world of boundless abundance and joy. And if you're experiencing something, you need to be asking, why am I experiencing that thing that I don't prefer? Why am I experiencing that? Were you ever taught that? Had that conversation when you were growing up? I didn't.
Never taught that. And even on a more physical level, definitely was never taught what I know to be true now, which is that the body heals itself naturally.
Yes.
And
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 that's really the key of the teaching that I learned with the Grow a New Body program. And what I teach now is you can put your body into a regenerative state. And if you are in that state and you maintain that state, you can heal from almost anything, not only from the chronic things that you're experiencing, like I was with my pain that's now gone, but because of the way the world is, we're constantly being bombarded with toxins, right? Toxic food, toxic radiation, toxic media, toxic relationships. But if you're naturally putting yourself into a regenerative state, you recover from that stuff instantly and you can recover from almost anything. Isn't that better than constantly looking for something to intervene to fix you?
yeah, the opposite is the worry and the fear. And the worry and the fear is one of the triggers, right? The worry and the fear, oh, I don't have insurance, I don't have the right doctor, I need to go somewhere. And that is one of the triggering mechanisms for everything that is
Right.
unhealthy. Well, Mark,
Yeah,
so good to have
exactly.
you here today. And like I said, we'll make sure we got a link for people to be able to connect with you and take you up on your generous offer. Do you want to repeat your offer one last time here to make it clear for people?
Yeah, so I'm going to let 5 people have an hour session with me to talk about this ultimate health goal plan so that you can get clarity on what's really out of balance, out of I need with you in the Quechua term. And we'll go from there. There's no obligation afterward. If you want to take the information and go, deal with it on your own, that's totally fine. But that's what I'm here for. That's my calling and my commitment is really to empower you to change in every way that you want to change.
So good. Well, Mark, so good having you here today. And I look forward to personally staying connected with you to continue on a journey of exuberant energy, as you say.
Yeah, thanks to you, and I appreciate everybody who's watching, and I wish you the best, and I wish you nothing but light and love, and I want you to be the person that you were always meant to be.